Hello and welcome to SLP Full Disclosure. I am your host, Jennifer Martin, and thank you so much for joining me today, listeners. Today is a bit of a special episode in some ways, and it's going to be a conversation between all of you and myself. So thank you for joining. First, just want to say I hope you all had a wonderful summer and are ready to head into fall. I must admit that I have my pumpkin spice creamer in my coffee right now, so I feel like that is the official sign that taking the steps towards fall and ready for some cooler weather. So I hope that you all are in the same position. And speaking of summer, I had the opportunity to take several consecutive weeks off, and it was so nice. I will tell you that I've never had the opportunity to do that before because I've been working, family things, kid things, and it just never was an option. So had that option this summer, and it was so great. I was able to spend time with people that I just don't really get to see that often because we don't have time in our weeks. Able to get back to the things that I loved. So hiking, biking, did some traveling, and just spent great time with my family and without a sense of urgency of, I got to do this, this has to happen. So it was just really magical. And if you're ever given that opportunity or can make it work somehow, and I know it's not easy, take it because it really was so good for me in every single way. Another thing that kind of came about during that time is I was really able to think about, what do I want next? Like, what do I want the next chapter to look like? And it really, I had the time to think through it and just have some great insight about what I do want next for life. And what is this next chapter going to look like? And I realized that I want to try some new things and I want to take on some new challenges. And with that came the hard realization that I can't do it all. And some things are going to have to give in order to make room for other things. So this is actually a bittersweet episode for me because I am going to have to take the podcast off my plate in order to be able to accommodate some of my new challenges and adventures, and sweet because it's the time. It's time for me to take on some new challenges. So, but really hard decision because this podcast has meant so much to me and I've just loved it every step of the way. It's funny because Jonathan Carey, our producer, who you all know, when he came in 2019 and said, we should do a podcast, I was thinking, there's too many of these out there. Like, who's going to listen? What do we have to say? Who would want to be a guest? All these doubts. And luckily, Jonathan was persistent and didn't give up. And so all of those doubts slowly went away. I thought, well, it's only going to be my mom that listens to this. But there was she listened and then others listened as well. So it turned out to be really great. And, just so happy that it was well received. So going forward, I won't have the privilege to host anymore, but these shoes can and will be filled, and new episodes will be coming out in 2024. So stay tuned. Make sure you can get updates on what is going to happen next. Follow on at AMN Allied on Instagram for updates, and there'll continue to be great content and entertainment for you all with this podcast. So what I want to do next is just briefly kind of go over what are some of the highlights and things that I've learned doing this podcast and see if any of them resonate with you all. When I started this podcast, I had no idea what to expect. Never done anything like this before. But as I was thinking about this last episode, I really just felt so nostalgic, and the feeling that just came up over and over again were, man, SLPs are just really cool, special people. And I've always known that. And I know I may be biased being one, but I just feel like in every setting, every area of my life that I've interacted with others, I've known that. It's just been apparent. And having these different guests on this podcast and learning from them has reinforced that in every way. So, one of the big things was just how knowledgeable this field is. And, I just want to go through this. By no means is this list inclusive or comprehensive, because every episode I walked away learning so much, and you all always left me better than you found me. And I was able to look at things in a new way and have some new insight. But some of the things that just really stood out for me as I was reviewing and kind of thinking through the last few years, the ability that you all have, that you can work in variety of settings that are so different. The people that went from acute care adults to preschool or vice versa. And just that flexibility and adaptability to know we've got these core skills. Let's see how else we can use them in what other populations. And that's really cool. And that takes courage, because those are hard switches to make. Other things that I really learned were our scope of practice, things that I had never even known from all my years as being an SLP that you could do as an SLP. So, working with spinal cord injuries, some of, concussion specialists, working the experts that we had in voice therapy. That was always an area that, of course, I knew we could specialize in, but that always felt so foreign to me. And so I never really felt like comfortable that I knew what I would do in that setting. And learning from several of you was so inspiring, that how cool that you took that and ran with it. People that work with college students and that are historically would not ever even been thought that they could go to college. And now they're in college and thriving because they have the support of speech pathologists that are going to help them move to this next chapter in their life and have a really fulfilling life. Executive functioning experts. And boy, did that help me understand myself personally, my family, my friends. That changed how I looked at everything. Having two teenagers, that was a great episode just personally. The creativity of you all, the content creators, those of you that take these creative energy and then actually do the work, and then have it available for your colleagues to use and for them to be able to improve what they're doing in their work, which I just think is so cool. SLPs that work internationally and learning about bilingualism. As a bilingual SLP, there's this thought, well, I know this area, and then I continue to learn, because as we know better, we do better. And I think that was a constant reinforcement also, that this field changes, and the way we were doing something doesn't mean we have to keep doing it that way. We had an amazing SLP that talked about African American English, AAE, and gave guidance on that. And that was another great opportunity to know what we were doing doesn't mean what we have to keep doing. And so, you know better, you do better. And those are just a few of just the immediate takeaways. But I could say something about every single episode and how cool it was and what I learned from you all. And again, it just gave me I felt so proud to be an SLP and to get to call you all colleagues in this field. And the other big takeaway that I got as I was going through this is, for anyone listening that has felt like, I would love to do something a little bit different within this field, but it's too late. What I learned from so many of our guests is it's never too late. And there's always, most always, is a path to what you want to do. It just will take a little bit of work, but it's doable. And something that I've often thought is, time is going to go by regardless of whether you do what you want to do or what you feel, the direction you're pulled in, or you don't. Time is going to go by. So don't ever think it's too late for you to try something new, because this field is vast and it's really cool. All the things that we can do. I just felt like a great sense of pride to be an SLP and learn from you all. As I sign off, I really just am leaving with such a happy heart. And I said to somebody, I'm really looking at this as not sad that it's over, but just so happy that it ever happened. And I just want to thank each guest that came on, how much knowledge you all shared, what we were all able to learn. And thank you for your willingness to share that with us, so we can just have a larger knowledge base. And I want to thank the listeners. Thank you for taking the time to tune in and spend time with me and to learn from our guests. I have spoken to so many of you just out and about and just received such great feedback and such thoughtful words. So thank you all for you could do a lot of things with your time, but you chose to do this. And I am grateful for that. I, of course, cannot finish this without thanking some of our behind the scenes people. And Jonathan, the producer, I've got to say thank you for coming up with this crazy idea and pushing it, and also just for making this so much fun to do and having so much patience with all my tech issues. So big thank you to Jonathan. It wouldn't have been possible without him. And Katie, who did so much behind the scenes work. It definitely took a village, and I'm so glad that you all were part of that village. So signing off, be well, listeners, and never forget the impact that you have on others every single day. And I want to thank you and will always be grateful for the impact that you all have had on me. Take care.